Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Playwright Dialogues. My name is Matt Lindsay. I'm the chair of the Dayton Playhouse Board of Directors, and it is my hope that everyone out there is well and in good spirits. The Playwright Dialogues are being produced by the Dayton Playhouse as part of our alternative programming for FutureFest 2020. You can go over to our website, DaytonPlayhouse.com, for a full schedule of our activities related to FutureFest and our ticketing for our streaming events. These dialogues are our opportunity to meet the 6 FutureFest finalist authors and listen in as they discuss with each other their plays, their inspirations, and themes within their work. Each of our dialogues, 3 in total, I'll be joined by 2 of our playwrights, and for this first dialogue, I'm being joined by William Cameron, author of Truth Be Told, and Barbara Blumenthal-Ehrlich, author of Thoughts and Prayers. Some brief introductions. Barbara Blumenthal-Ehrlich has written at least a dozen full-length plays that have had productions across the US and Canada over the last 2 decades. A 6-time winner of the Boston Theater Marathon, Blumenthal-Ehrlich has also been named winner of the 6 Women Playwrights Festival, the Capital Stage Playwrights Revolution, and others. Thoughts and Prayers is her first play selected as a FutureFest finalist. William Cameron is Professor Emeritus of Theater and Communication Arts at Washington and Jefferson College in Pennsylvania. Cameron is the author of Violet Sharp, winner of the 2007 Julie Harris Playwriting Prize. His submission for FutureFest 2020, Truth Be Told, is also the recipient of the 2020 Stanley Drama Award. This is also Cameron's first time as a FutureFest finalist. William Cameron and Barbara Blumenthal-Ehrlich, welcome.
Thank you
so much for joining us, and congratulations on your selection as FutureFest finalists.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
It is an honor.
It's a great pleasure to be speaking with you both, even under these technological circumstances. So we paired the 2 of you together for this dialogue because both of your plays center on characters dealing with the aftermath of mass shooting incidents. So William Cameron, your play, Truth Be Told, is a dialogue between an investigative journalist and the mother of an alleged mass shooter.
Correct.
If you would, please tell us something about the inspiration of this play and how it got to where it is today.
Well, the inspiration, I think part of it came just from my own experience as a parent. Being a father, having a son, worrying about the decisions that you make, how they affect your son. Is your son growing up the right way, or have you done anything that sort of set him off on a path that might make him troubled in some way? It's being a parent, as I'm sure you may know, it's a daunting task, and I love my son more than anything, and so there's a constant concern about his welfare, about his mental health, about his physical health. And so I think a lot of the play has to do with that. Both of the characters in the play are mothers, both with one son, and they are that's the concern for both of them that's really driving so much of the play. But I also was concerned about after the Sandy Hook shootings, there were a number of people that came out and claimed that the shootings never really happened, and people that sort of adopted the narrative for their own specific purposes, to sort of take the truth and twist the truth for their own specific purposes. And I found this just outrageous and horrifying. And so I wanted to write about that. And so somehow those 2 things, this notion, this concern of being a parent, and my outrage at one of the things that I saw was happening out there in the world, those 2 things combined in there, I think they're both built into Truth Be Told. The mother in the play has sort of bought into a fantasy that has been presented to her by a conspiracy theorist. It gives her some comfort, and so she accepts it in a sense as the truth and tries to convince the journalist of the truth. I just thought, having read about that and seen evidence of that in the press. I was just outraged by it, and I wanted to write about it. So that's where that came from.
It's a very powerful dialogue.
Thank you.
I greatly enjoyed reading it. So Barbara Blumenthal-Ehrlich, your play, Thoughts and Prayers, presents us in parallel two survivors of a mass shooting, a teacher and a student, and how the incident alters the trajectory of their lives. So if you would, please share with us your inspiration and the journey that this play took to get to where it is today.
I think the inspiration was probably after the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand. And Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister, immediately put an end to a ban on assault rifles of all kinds. And when I read about that, I just got angry about the gun policies in this country and our inability to really do something substantial with ending gun violence. And I was just so struck by the boldness of her move that I felt like, and so angry about gun control in our country. I wrote Thoughts and Prayers as a response. And it really was a very therapeutic experience for me, because I just needed a place to put my anger. And I think I chose school violence because I do feel, I think at that point there was approximately a shooting a month, and it just felt like nothing was really getting done. And so those seem like the most innocent victims, although they're all innocent victims. And as a mother, I also respond very strongly to these when I hear about a gun shooting. And ironically, this March was the first March in, I think, a decade or a dozen years, because there was no school, that there had not been a school shooting. So that was the inspiration. You know, I just, and I did put, I think in the play that was selected for Future Fest, there's 11 dead children in the play. I have trimmed that down to 4 in the current draft of the play, mostly so that I could personalize them a little bit more. It felt like that was just sort of a massive amount of kids, and part of what I really wanted to do was personalize this story. These are real kids, and I wanted to make it personal.
Mm-hmm. So this is a question for both of you. Mass shootings is a very topical subject. I'm wondering if, as part of your playwriting process, if either of you did any extensive research on real life incidents to inform your work.
Well, I'll start. I started out by reading a whole slew of books that were out there. I read the Columbine book. I read a book about the Newtown shootings. I read a book called Ceremonial Violence, which takes a look at school shooters and why they were doing what they were doing, sort of picking them apart and looking at those the shooters who suffered from abuse, who suffered from mental illness, who were victims of bullying. What are the various reasons that were spelled out why these people were doing these things? So yeah, I did a lot of reading about this, and of course followed in the news as they were happening, and like Barbara, just outraged by the fact that these were happening, and by the fact that we simply weren't doing anything about it. That's, I think one of the things about Barbara's play that I really loved is that it dramatizes so beautifully the futile and maddening effort that someone makes to try and make any kind of change in this country, and she just brings that to life really in a really compelling way in that play. So yeah, I did a lot of reading, did a lot of research, and then discovered a lot about the process. So it's very upsetting.
Barbara?
I like William, I read a lot about school shootings, and then I watched a bunch of interviews with teachers who had survived shootings, or teachers who were just sort of living under the threat of shootings. And that was really interesting. I think because I have a teacher and because I have a student in the play, I did a lot of research on the effects of shooting on them. The teachers were especially poignant because not only is their job is so hard to begin with, and now they literally are like looking for exits when they walk into a classroom. And trying to imagine how they would deal with it, and would they put their lives ahead of the lives of their students. And it was just really compelling to listen to them, to see how many years later, that they're never going to be the same for those who survived it. And then I also watched a lot of video of Emma Gonzalez, that really powerful speaker from Parkland, along with other students, but she really impressed me. And then I also listened a lot to politicians who were sort of on the other side of what my character, the student Annie, was facing, to understand the arguments that were being used to not do anything. So there was a lot of video watching in addition to a lot of reading.
That's really interesting. And I'm curious from both of you, at what point did you think, when you had this idea in mind, that this could be or should be a stage play?
Seems to me I started out right away. The first thought that came to my mind is that it needed to be a stage play, and the research and everything else that all the work that I did on followed that. I just had the idea right off the bat that I wanted to write a play about this. I'm always on the lookout for ideas for plays, and so I just had it in my mind that I wanted to write a play about gun violence and mass shootings. And I started off, actually the play started off, the shooter was a high school kid who was it was a school shooting, and I ultimately changed it to a workshop shooting, a workplace shooting, because I wanted to relate it more to his family and his relationship with his stepfather. And I thought that relationship would work better in a workplace setting than in a school. But it seems to me the idea for the play came first, and everything else, all the research and everything else I did, came after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on my end, I think in terms of drama, if that makes any sense. And so in some ways it just seemed like I just had to sit down and start writing. So I don't remember a moment or a particular event. It just seemed like it was time to sit down and write this play. It is the first time I sort of moved in a nonlinear way. It's the first time I was so surreal in my approach to it. There's a lot of surreal moments in this play. Time moves in a very different way than in any other play I've written. And it's the first time I put kids in a play, which is a little scary because
very brave.
So I don't know that there was a particular moment. It just seemed like it gave itself over to a theatrical convention.
Well, I'm interested by that. Talk about more, please, about the use of flexible time and surreal elements and doing things new. How did you give yourself permission to go outside maybe your comfort area?
Brene Brown. Are you familiar with Brene Brown?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah. She has she's a motivational speaker. She does a lot of TED Talks, and she had a special on Netflix, and she really encourages her sort of, I can't really boil down like all of her research into a log line, but I'm going to. Her basic premise in all of her work is that by taking a risk, you risk falling on your face, but you also risk moving forward in some way emotionally, the advantages of being vulnerable. And, there's a lot of pitfalls in that, but there's also a lot of advantages. So I watched her TED Talk or her Netflix special, and up until that point, I didn't have the kids in the play. And I watched it and I thought, I really got to put the kids in this play. And that changed everything because they are not alive. And so it became then by doing that, I just gave myself permission to go in all kinds of weird directions I'd never gone in before. And so she was the catalyst for that. She's really worth watching if you haven't seen her work or read her books. She's great. You're familiar with her work, William?
I am. I think I listened to some an online course or something that she did, or a book. I don't remember, but it was wonderful, and it was inspiring. I thought she talked a lot about empathy and compassion, and it was very, very compelling. Yes, I can see how you can be inspired by that. So, and I just want to say this, and I just think it works so beautifully in your play, the inclusion of children. And yes, I think it's a very brave thing, but it just works so wonderfully. And the character of Annie in particular, who is so central to the play, her journey is just heartbreaking. It's just so beautifully done. I just love that about the play. So well done on that. And so I think you made, I know it's a brave choice, but I think you made absolutely the right decision. It just works so well.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate it. My heart breaks every time I think about Annie.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think part of the inspiration for the play, as I think about it now, we're right around the time that they banned the assault rifles in New Zealand. There was the suicide of the Parkland girl a year later.
Right.
Also a father of a Newtown
child. Right.
Right around the same time.
I know.
And it makes you realize that it just doesn't. And that was also the sense I got from these teachers. It doesn't leave when we go to the next, news cycle. It doesn't leave these people.
No.
And it's heartbreaking. And I got that feeling from the mother in your play. I mean, I saw a lot of similarities between Annie and the mother, because I felt like, was her name Kathleen?
Kathleen, yes.
She's just working so hard to come up with some other reason.
Right.
And that's her survival mechanism.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking to read. And I could totally picture it as I was reading it. I could just see the mother just pedaling so fast.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to say one other thing, Matt. This has to do with Dayton, actually, because I know there was a shooting in Dayton just a little over a year ago. My mother was born and raised in Dayton, so I have some emotional connection to the city. And actually, one of the victims in the Dayton shooting is from my hometown. Is from right around. I didn't know him. It's not my tragedy. I don't want to claim it as such. But it was certainly, it hit very, very close to home. And the fact that it's my mother's hometown, it was just devastating. So I really, the one thing I truly regret about not being able to come to Dayton is being able to talk about this and share this with some of the people who were, not lived through it, but who were, the whole city lived through that. Right. I'm sure it was a devastating moment for all of you, and for being so close to it. Being close to it in my own way, I can't imagine what all of you in Dayton are going through. It must just have been a horrifying moment. So my heart goes out.
That was August 4th of last year. That's right. Middle of the summer.
Yes.
The same week as the shooting in El Paso.
Exactly. It was like within 24 hours of it, wasn't it? It was like they came right after the other. So it's horrifying.
Both of your plays address issues of survivor guilt, and I think that's perhaps an aspect of these incidents that it's certainly not covered in the media. I don't know that it's well known. Is there something that you'd like your audiences to learn from your plays about that aspect of surviving one of these incidents?
Well, since my play is about the mother of a shooter, one of the books that I read when I was working on the play. Actually, I think I'd written the play and then I went back and read this book, and then I went back and did some more work on the play. There's a book by Susan Klebold, who was the mother of Dylan Klebold, who was one of the Columbine shooters. And of course, in the wake of the shooting, and you can certainly understand this, in the wake of the shooting, she was a despised figure. How could you have not seen this coming? How could you have not known that your child was doing this? But she was clearly a kind, compassionate, loving mother, clearly an intelligent and thoughtful woman who, like so many other people, saw her son die as a victim of gun violence. Yes, he was the perpetrator, but certainly she deserves some compassion. And I think one of the wonderful things about Mrs. Klebold is that she's been been very forward about her experience and has written and talked a lot about her experience of being a mother and the pain that she went through and the having the acceptance of the responsibility for it. And so I really came away admiring her. And so here's a woman suffering from the most profound sort of survivor guilt, and came out of it, I thought, somewhat heroically, and presents herself, takes full responsibility for what mistakes that she made, and tries to address the issues so that these things don't happen again in the future. I just thought she was a remarkable woman, and I wanted some of that to be to exist in my character in the play, to exist in Kathleen. So I'm not sure it does, but it's one of the qualities that, while she's clinging to this fantasy about her son, at the same time she clearly loved her son and cared about her son and was a kind and loving mother to the best of her ability, and she deserves some credit for that. So I think in a lot of these situations, our contempt goes out to these people, and I think our compassion needs to go out to these people as well. So that's one of the ideas that I wanted to try and get across in the play.
Mm-hmm. Barbara?
I think Bill and I are looking at two very different kinds of survivor guilt, and it's interesting because it just makes you realize the tentacles of the nightmare, that it has so many different kinds of potential repercussions. It also seems like it's really a Rorschach test for who we are. You know, I think there are probably people who, you know, as you described, this mother of the Columbine shooter, she used it as an opportunity to grow and talk, and that probably was the way she survived.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is that strong, and so I guess a character like Annie, who doesn't survive, who experiences survivor guilt and does not survive ultimately, is somebody who just was overwhelmed by what happened and couldn't really face the fact that she lived and her friends died. And I think she was working very hard to make a change to fight the survivor guilt. I mean, she was really working against it, and then ultimately when she sort of crashed and burned, she couldn't live any longer. And it's interesting. I just think there's a lot of different ways that you can respond to that kind of almost unimaginable nightmare.
The teacher as well experienced a great deal.
Yes, she just went inside herself, and then really Annie's suicide is a catalyst for her to overcome her own struggle and to fight. But so yeah, she obviously felt like I should have been the one who died, not these kids. And if, you know, I was, and she felt her own sense of responsibility, given the way that the class was lined up before the shooter walked in. It's tough. I think the other thing is just the private trauma that people experience. Like when you talk about the mother from Columbine, she brought it out in public. You know, and I think the people who keep it in and privately are tortured are the ones who are probably suffer ultimately, you know, a more difficult fate. Not that it's easy for anybody, but it's a great counterpoint to hear about that mother, I guess.
Did you encounter some of those things in the videos of the teachers that you watched?
Yes, actually, a lot of them were using their experience to help kids. You know, they reached out, and the teachers who survived it, on the whole, seemed to have a lot of support, and they knew how to take care of themselves better maybe than the kids. You know, I think kids felt that I watched seemed to internalize it more. You know, the people who could work through it were the ones who, but you know, there's a PTSD associated with it. It's not unlike the soldiers' experience, or, you know, it just haunts them. They're not the same. They're not the same.
Yeah, how could they be?
Yeah, it's terrible.
So, both of your plays explore sort of the ways that mass shooting incidents make a transition from being a sort of a human tragedy moment in eventually become sort of a political touch point.
Yeah.
Other than the obvious truism that we have not been able in this country to make these incidents stop, what are your thoughts about how we as a people are processing and dealing with the issue of mass shootings in this country?
Following the Dayton shooting last year in August, I posted something on my Facebook page because this young man from my hometown had died. And it had followed hard upon the El Paso shooting, and I was just sort of exhausted. And I had been working on the play, and I was just sort of exhausted from it all. And I just posted something on my Facebook page about how I felt that we were lost in the face of these shootings. That the fact that we couldn't do anything about it, that we couldn't stop it, that they continued, that all that we offered were, dare I say it, our thoughts and prayers. And one of the young gentleman I went to high school with, who's a friend, posted, "Well, yeah, you're right. We need to do something about mental health." And well, yeah, of course we need to do something about mental health. But this man is a gun owner and a Second Amendment advocate, and his argument basically was, well, we can't take our guns away, so we need to do something about mental health. And this sparked. I didn't get involved, but it sparked a whole argument between a whole group of people on my Facebook feed. And that, in a sense, almost troubled me more. That we seem to have the same kind of debate over and over again, and yet seem to be so completely incapable of making any kind of change at all. And it's just so discouraging. I guess I think that's one of the other things that I think is so wonderful about thoughts and prayers, is that it brings to life just the profound futility of trying to make any kind of change at all. And certainly that's, for me, when reading the play, I thought that's what drove Annie to her suicide in the end of the play, was her inability to sort of make any kind of change or convince anybody else in the world that things needed to be different. And so this it's just heartbreaking to me. It's just heartbreaking to me. So I'm discouraged by it, in case you can't tell.
I would share that discouragement. I'm afraid. I look at New Zealand and I just think, why can't we do that?
Yes.
It doesn't really get in the way of your friend with his guns. You know, I think
Right.
I think for the most part, gun owners are very responsible.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't change the situation. And I guess I'm also really discouraged. I think, you know, in a way, it's sort of gone on the back burner right now with the coronavirus and the Black Lives Matter situation. And in a way, I'm just grateful there weren't. I was afraid with all the protesters that was going to be a bit of a, like, one more thing opportunity for people to come out with their guns. So I'm not encouraged, I'm afraid.
No.
I'm sorry to say.
No, I'm not either.
Yeah.
Thank you both for that. So let me ask you, to wrap up, what do you see in the future? What is next for your scripts? Do you have productions lined up, or are you still working on the scripts? Are they works in progress? What what's the next thing for them? Barbara?
It is, I've just entered into a collaborative relationship with a director in New York to try to bring it, to have a reading of it, a backers reading, and bring it to some kind of, if the country ever opens up, some sort of production. And it's a finalist at a couple of places, but I have begun writing another play about something else. So, you know, there's some stuff in the works. I think you probably have this too, William. You know, you have stuff in different stages. And so you're working on something, you're trying to promote something, you just keep active. So there's some hope for the play down the road, but I'm so excited and honored to have it be part of Future Fest. It's a great play festival, and right now I'm really just excited and happy to be part of it, even in this remote way.
I would echo that. I'm just thrilled to be part of the festival, and just heartbroken that we couldn't actually do it in person. But still, I'm just so pleased. I have it with a friend in New York, a producer in New York who's looking at it. I won the Stanley Drama Award. Was presented in early March, and there's a reading in the city scheduled in October, if that can still happen. It's a finalist a couple of other places, and but then everything shut down, and I just thought I needed to start working on something new. So I've been working on a new play for the past month and a half, just to sort of keep myself busy. But we'll see where I'm just kind of in a holding pattern right now with Truth Be Told, waiting to hear from a couple of different places about it, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah. Aren't we all in the holding?
Yes, yes.
Well, again, congratulations to you both being named Future Fest finalists for 2020. Thank you both for taking a part of your day to talk with me about your scripts.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Some of the cross-cutting themes between the two of them. For our audience, please keep an eye on our Dayton Playhouse YouTube channel for our other dialogues. And also you can go over to our website, DaytonPlayhouse.com, for a full schedule of our alternative programming for Future Fest 2020. Also where you can purchase tickets or our commemorative t-shirts for the 2020 festival at our website. Thank you both again for participating with us, and we'll see you soon at the Dayton Playhouse. Thanks very much.